and the personnel also are more volatile. But from the top on down, there's more volatility, more uncertainty, more difficulty in predicting what's going to happen. Let's sort of telescope down into an area of interest for all of us, which is BEAD, and I can give you my thoughts on that.
Sorry, Michelle Simon, you need to mute.
Right, agreed. So let's look at BEAD as an example of what how we kind of predict what might happen. I believe, to get to the headline, that it's not going to be rescinded. I think the program is going to continue. I'm kind of surprised by the amount of leaders in Washington that are talking about it, such as John Thune, that maybe the program should be scrapped, which makes people think it will be. Some people think. I don't believe that. I think that the wisdom of the smartest people in Washington is that the program will continue with some modifications that will actually make it more sympathetic to ISPs, and we'll address some of ISP's largest concerns about how the program is being run. So the reason for that is obviously sometimes the obvious stuff is the case, which is that this is a constituency that's very important to the president and his team, and rural areas are not the area they kind of want to lead with their nose. But on the other hand, you see some very rural senators like Jody Ernst and John Thune talking about scrapping it. So you wonder if that's the case. But in fact, if you really look underneath it, what a lot of Republicans have been saying is the Democrats haven't gotten any money out the door, and that's why the program's a failure. They didn't move fast enough. They put all these red tape on it. So obviously the answer to that is to move faster and to remove the red tape, which is, I think, what exactly is going to happen. Although it's always possible, as we said, that we could be surprised, and it is possible to rescind. But what we think will happen is that they're in a position to deliver on that, because basically Democrats kind of handed them the ball, and finally everything's cruising. I mean, states like Arizona and a number of other states are out looking for applications right now. They can say that they did everything to speed it up, and they're going to be able to deliver on that promise because things are moving fast anyway. I mean, it's finally getting going, and they're going to take credit for it. So perfect job, Democratic NTIA, to give a huge win to the Trump administration, really, coming in, having taken a long time doing it. And there's key areas that they will quickly, I think, change. I think there is a risk for the digital equity program of being rescinded and that money being taken back or reprogrammed, and that would have to be done by Congress. But for the subsidy program, probably not. They'll probably remove some of the pro-labor provisions. They'll remove the fiber preference in a way that I think Elon Musk will find very attractive. They won't just say they're turning the whole thing over to satellite, as at one point the president said during the transition, the president-elect. But it will make it much easier to do that. It might make it easier to do fixed wireless. They'll remove some of the affordability requirements. A number of other provisions on the environment and on climate change that they find offensive. And this can be done very quickly. I think that a lot of people believe they need a political appointee heading NTIA in order to do that, and they don't. My experience, having run RUS during the transition in 2009, is that it took me a while to get confirmed because I was waiting for Julius Janikowski over at the FCC to take my seat. So I didn't get in there until June. And by that time, without an RUS administrator, they had already established a NOFO. We called it NOFA. But they put that out the door and done a first round by August when I got there. And the way they do it is the Office of the Secretary can operate with guidance from the White House. So what NTIA tends to do is put out programmatic guidance. Those of you in this might have seen, and they can do that very quickly. So we'll see some programmatic guidance coming out of NTIA fairly early in administration, could be within the first couple of months, most likely, basically granting a waiver to states so that they don't have to have an affordability requirement. They don't have to do some of the things that are required by the current NTIA and the current NOFO. So states will then have that flexibility, and states can kind of do, if they want to relax it, they can. They may be required to remove certain items, such as particularly anything involving DEI and labor. There might be more affirmative guidance. In other areas, there'll be more flexibility provided, which I think ISPs will actually welcome. So this should happen fairly early on. The reason I don't think it'll get rescinded is it would take Congress in order to do that technically under the law. Not that the administration necessarily follows current law. Let me expand on that for a minute. The law is, the Impoundment Control Act of 1974 requires the executive to actually spend money that Congress appropriates, because Nixon used to impound money and not spend it. So Congress said, well, you can't do that. If Congress says to spend it, you got to spend it. The President-elect Trump has said that he believes that's unconstitutional. That's quite a stretch, because it's never been found in any way, shape, or form to be unconstitutional. I think that given the clear role in the Constitution for Congress controlling the purse strings, that he will not win that, but he says he wants to challenge that. So you can say, well, he could not spend the money and take on a constitutional fight over it, which is possible. And I think he will do that in other areas, but I would be shocked if he would do that in an area of concern to his political constituency and where Congress is divided. And many Republicans support the program. Not all Republicans do, but the party's fairly split. So if you're going to take on a constitutional battle, you don't do it over a program that your constituency supports and that your party's divided over. You take on something much more sort of red meat oriented, some environmental program to save a salamander somewhere, something that you can say, I'm not going to spend money on that, and you can make a political point. This would be a very bad point to make if you're going to take on the Impoundment Control Act. So short of a rescission, if Congress doesn't act, I think the biggest risk is that Congress does act and rescinds the funds. And again, as I indicated earlier, I don't expect they'll rescind this, but I think there is an outside chance that could happen. That's where that volatility and difficulty comes in to explain what's going to happen. I mean, we've never seen in Washington in many years any deep concern since my days on the Hill in the 1990s and early 2000s with the deficit. It's been a little shocking to me to see it began, particularly after this very careful effort where, George W. Bush's father lost the election because he did the right thing by trying to balance the budget with the whole read my lips, no new taxes. Remember, you could tell one lie back then and that was it for your career, or one misstatement. And now you can do it every day, multiple times, and you get reelected. Or so times have changed on that front, but that was a tough one for him. And his son learned the lesson and went ahead and cut taxes without regard to the deficit. The deficit began to balloon, and nobody's looked back on either side and seen the political upside of balancing the budget. So now we're seeing kind of a divided view in Congress that some Republicans are very concerned about the size of the deficit, would like to use that to basically shrink the size of the federal government. I think some of this, obviously the Elon Musk effort is part of that approach. There's a but how that plays out is really hard to predict. How serious are they? How much are they really going to cut? Obviously, they have major goals on the expense side, particularly tax cuts of a huge magnitude that some folks want to offset, but then Republicans don't like to believe in many ways that tax cuts require offsets because they claim that they pay for themselves, which has been proven wrong, but that doesn't stop folks from saying it. There is maybe some offset, but not nearly 100%. So they might use that as an opportunity in a reconciliation package in order to move through some major cuts. And one of the ways they will cut is what's called a rescission, or to rescind funds for existing programs that are not in favor. And that's where sort of a bead could be vulnerable. I don't think it will be. I think they'll go after other things. And it's again very hard to predict how that's going to work, or how serious of an effort that's going to be, how much the cuts are going to be forward-looking versus rescinding existing funds. I think we'll probably see both in an effort to offset the costs of the tax cuts. And I think all of you probably understand this is done through what's called reconciliation. It's a special procedure in Congress that allows for budgetary bills to go through on a majority basis in the Senate. So there's no filibuster in the Senate. There'll probably be no votes for it from the Democrats in the House or the Senate, probably for this bill. So it's going to be a unilateral Republican effort. They've got to get that very narrow group in the House to pass it. They've got to get a fairly narrow majority in the Senate to agree to it, but they can do that with just a 50 vote, so they can afford to lose basically a couple votes both in the Senate and the House. Pretty difficult to do, which makes controversial spending cuts again difficult. It doesn't take very many people to cause a problem. Now you think in something like BEAD, for example, say members don't like it, they don't want to take it out. Are they going to vote against a giant, beautiful bill, as the president-elect calls it, because they're mad about one little cut here or there? I don't think so. But on the other hand, you don't want to add these things up and have too many little cuts that add up to somebody saying, I don't want to vote for this bill. So that gets kind of tricky because it's hard to predict. I mean, if you're really trying to do anything serious about the size of the deficit while you're doing massive tax cuts, you're going to piss people off, right? Certain constituencies. And the broader sort of Trump package and the discipline he's been able to kind of enforce is going to make it interesting to see how that works. Again, I just don't think they're going to pick a fight on this one in Congress. I don't think he'll pick a fight on it unilaterally through impoundment. And therefore, I think the program will go through. I think it'll continue. I think they'll adjust it. That's just an example of kind of my thinking on that issue. I don't know if there's what else would be of most interest in the time we have left, like to think about, Steve. Are there other things?
Yeah. So yeah, Jonathan, there's lots of issues, obviously, right. And I know we got a short period of time, but USF is certainly one of those issues, and right. Obviously that's an important funding source for E-rate and telemedicine and a number of other issues. And there was a bipartisan committee that was studying that, and I don't know where that is or what your thoughts are about that. And then, of course, we have a new FCC chair, and NTIA administrator is going to be replaced. I mean, we can go on, and I know you only have about 5 more minutes. So I guess I would pick on USF at the moment, and maybe we'll bring you back for other discussions in the future.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do this again and get into all that when we get a little bit more visibility after the first, maybe month or two, and hear what people are saying. But on the USF, great question. I think the biggest threat comes from the Supreme Court. There's a division in the circuits. The Fifth Circuit actually found the program unconstitutional on a very narrow 8-7 vote after the earlier panel had come up with a very intelligent decision that it was constitutional by a 3-0 unanimous decision. So it's a unusual decision coming out of an unusual court, relatively well reasoned for such a radical decision. But normally you would think the Supreme Court would throw that out because there's 2 other circuits that found in the other direction on top of the original panel of the Fifth Circuit. I won't get into too much legalities, but I think that when I talk to smart lawyers about this, there is a surprisingly strong view of the risk to the entire program in the Supreme Court, that this might be an opportunity for them to kick the legs out from under it and throw it back into Congress. It would be absolutely, devastating, obviously, to the current order. I don't think that that's something that the administration would probably want to see. I don't think it's something that Brendan Carr would want to see. It would just be a mess for him, and it would cause vast instability. It would also damage the RUS program. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I don't want to assign probabilities to it, but I think it's a material possibility. I think there's also a very good possibility the Supreme Court reverses it or finds narrow grounds, and what we've heard from the court might be on jurisdictional grounds. They kind of don't hear the case. If they do throw it out, which is the big risk, then this working group suddenly becomes very important. There's been a bipartisan working group in Congress thinking about how to reform it. They haven't gotten very far, but the important thing is that they've kind of educated this group about the program, and then they'll be in a position to move more quickly. Should it be thrown back in Congress's lap? Because if the Supreme Court throws it out, Congress has got to fix it. And I think that there'll be a lot of incentive to do that, but it gets very tricky. Obviously, the current mechanism is one that doesn't is underfunded because it relies on long distance revenues. And there's been talk for many years since I started in 2002 and before that in the FCC about finding a more stable revenue source. Even in 2002 when I started, there was long distance was not a reliable source. It was, the numbers were going up. It's fairly a rational basis for a stable revenue source. And so the idea of connections is a good one, but then a lot of Republicans call that taxing the internet, and it gets very controversial. So how Congress is going to fix this, if it's thrown in their lap, there's no certainty they're going to fix it. I think it'll be a large enough crisis they may be forced to do it, and they may be forced to have a bipartisan solution. And I think that Majority Leader in the Senate, John Thune, is very committed to the program, and it would cause such devastation in his state, I think in a lot of Republican states, that there would be an urgent sense of needing to do it. But there'd be a lot of uncertainty and difficulty in getting that fixed because you have to pay for it somehow. And if you do it out of appropriations as opposed to the regular mechanism now, it's also uncertain. It's difficult for long-term investments in these infrastructure networks if you don't have the reliability we've seen in universal service. One of the most successful programs to provide, connectivity and broadband would be, I think, undercut. It's worked really well. On the other hand, I remember when I was at the FCC that I felt like I was having worked in Congress, I felt like I was a mini Congress. We could basically, hate to say it, but we could kind of tax and spend. We basically could say, well, we're going to change these revenue numbers coming in so that we can do little twist on a program, whether it's, rural health care, all these great things, schools and libraries, rural, how we're going to do Alaska. I mean, we were sitting there, it really was, in the sense, having a congressional power to raise money and decide how to spend it without anybody elected involved. So I get where the constitutional concern comes from, and I certainly enjoyed having that when I was on the FCC, and we certainly did great things with it, and it's been super successful. Does that mean it's constitutional? Not necessarily. But I think this court, if they don't throw it out, or might make the decision on jurisdictional grounds that don't really ultimately address the question. So Congress, you think they should fix it, but there's not a lot of ability to do that right now. I don't think this working group's going to be able to take a lot of action unless there's a crisis. I don't think they've had enough progress where they can actually fix the program and come up with a new revenue source. Given the political headwinds of solving that problem and sort of having to, quote, tax the internet to get the votes to fundamentally reform USF. So that group is useful, particularly as a sort of backup in case we have an emergency handed to us by the courts.
Well, I'm sure we'd have lots of other questions, but I know you got to drop off. You got a hard quit here in about 1 minute. So I appreciate, Jonathan, you being here, and we'll probably want to get you back in the fairly near future. There's a lot of other issues we didn't even get to today.
There sure are.
As you well know.
I'll join again as a participant, but I'll be back anytime you want to get into other hot issues when we have a little bit more evidence about what direction things are taking.
Well, the only thing is, Jonathan, you're difficult to chase down.
I'm right here in Arizona now. I can't hide.
Well, anyway, thank you very much, Jonathan. I know you got to run. Appreciate you being here, and we'll be back in touch.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. Good to catch up.
Yep. Okay. Let me go back to just a second here. Okay, so let's getting back to our agenda now. First of all, do we have any new people who have joined us today?
Hi, everyone. I'm new. My name's Julie Henderson. I'm with Copa Health and happy to be here.
Great. And we're going to get you guys on the agenda sometime in the near future.
Wonderful.
Okay, anybody else that's new today? Okay, so moving on the agenda today, again, obviously we made some changes to accommodate Jonathan's agenda. Um, So Mala, I'm going to again change the order a little bit and put Mala on. I think you all know Mala is the E-rate administrator for the state library, but Mala is also pretty up to date on a lot of what's happening in Washington and so forth. And so Mala is a good follow up to Jonathan. You want to take on some things. I just want to mention, and I should have probably done this when I introduced Jonathan, but I was just looking at what are some of the issues that we're going to be looking at here. We've got a new FCC chair. We'll have a new NTIA administrator. We got the Universal Service Fund, including E-rate, alternative technologies guidelines, possibility of clawback of BEAD funds, which Jonathan sort of addressed already, net neutrality. Senator Cruz is the new chairman of the Commerce Committee. And there's the NTIA proposal for spectrum auction to fund the agency's rip and replace program, net neutrality. I already mentioned that. And who knows what else. So there's a lot of issues that are going to be happening here that impact the work that we're all committed to. So we'll be talking about some more of those things, and some of those maybe Mala, you want to address some of those issues or not. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. You actually listed almost all of the things that are on my agenda, my plate as well, so thank you. Yes, with the new FCC chair, the priorities are likely to change. They will change. And we will monitor those changes, especially the cybersecurity and the hotspot lending and Wi-Fi on school buses. Those have been pretty, I won't call it controversial, but they've been debated a lot. Wi-Fi on school buses especially, has had a lot of conversation around it. What are they using it for? The children on the school buses, are they using it to play games or do their homework? Well, it's keeping them quiet, and the bus drivers are happy. I think that's that's a positive. But other than that, we've got to look at that program. The cybersecurity pilot program was totally underfunded compared to the amount of requests that they had. It was $200 million and almost 5 times as many in applications, if not more. So I don't know what end it's going to serve. And it's a 2-year pilot program. So, and we are just through the stage 1 when in the application process where applicants have had to show an expression of interest. And then from that, there will be a selection. And that would be a much more detailed application. So let's wait and see what happens. Right now, there hasn't been much movement on that front yet. The other thing that today is, of course, there are some deadlines as far as E-rate is concerned, which is my primary job. And E-rate, today is the deadline where the administrative window closes. So any changes schools and libraries need to make, they have to do it today. Changes like changes to their square footage, their student count, and any contact information changes, branch and main library or school and school district connections have to be, any changes have to be established now. They will lock that, and the application window opens on January 15th. So after that, it'll be difficult to make any changes. and the application window for 2025-26. That is starting, the year starts July 1, 2025 and goes through June 30th of 2026. The application deadline for that year starts on January 15th and closes on March 26th. So those are some of the deadlines that we need to be aware of. The State Procurement Office is setting up state master contracts for Category 1, which is the internet access, so that it is more affordable and more prevalent, available, especially in the rural areas where sometimes you don't have more than one service provider. Mojave Educational Consortium has done contracts for Category 2, which is internal connections, networking, wireless equipment, routers, those kind of things, switches, hubs. The contract is already in place for that. Having said that about Category 2, this is the last year. It's in a 5-year cycle. This is the 5th year of the current cycle. So, and Category 2 budgets are based on square footage for libraries and student count for schools. So schools and libraries that haven't utilized the entire amount that they are eligible for, this is their final chance to do that for this year. We have no idea how this is going to pan out in the next cycle, whether they're going to base it on the same square footage, whether they're going to base it on student count, whether they're going to make any changes to the Category 2 budget remains to be seen, especially if they are budget cutting. That is one area which they are likely to cut because it has been underutilized. So I urge all the libraries and schools that haven't applied for the full amount that they are eligible for to make use of it this year. FCC has actually set up a new USAC board. FCC sets up the USAC board. USAC is Universal Services Administrative Company that administers the E-rate program as well as 3 other programs. The Lifeline, Rural Health, High Cost program are all administered by USAC. And the USAC board is selected by the FCC chair. Jessica Rosenworcel appointed 8 members to the board of directors. And that was, you can read more about it if you Google it, the names of all of the appointees. It's a mix of service providers as well as industry consultants and library and school representatives on the board. And this board is really important because it works with FCC on the one hand to clarify all the rules and provides guidelines to schools and libraries on how these funds can be utilized. So the board plays a very crucial role in the disbursement of the whole Universal Service Fund. Officially, the ECF fund has sunset as of December 9th, 2024. All the reimbursements for the program has happened, and there are going to be no more reimbursements for the ECF program. ECF program, as you know, had $7.2 billion that was set aside, Emergency Connectivity Fund. And this was for schools and libraries to provide devices as well as hotspots for students as well as patrons to take home as a COVID relief measure. So that's come to an end. And as we all know, ACP came to an end. So there's a lot of funding available for different things, but funding that have come to an end as well, that we have to deal with. Telehealth, I'm working on some programs with Douglas, Wachuca City, and Sedona Public Libraries. They are the 3 new libraries that have come on board and working on programming. For them, we've provided them with funding for the equipment, and all the equipment has been purchased. so they have it available in their libraries, as well as if they do need to lend it out, they can. I can hand it back to you, Steve, for any questions if anyone has. Otherwise,
Any questions for Mala? Thank you, Mala. You always do a
thank you,
great,
Steve.
great job of. So, Mala, you just want to make one other quick comment about Shelby and some changes that are happening there?
Right. Shelby's president. Um,
Excuse me, Mala. We want to tell people what Shelby is.
Shelby, yes, Shelby is Schools, Health, and Libraries Broadband Coalition. Shelby is in its 15th year of existence. No, maybe more. 15 years of conferences they've had. So they've been in existence for at least 16 or 17 years now, and they have been championing the challenges that schools, libraries, and broadband schools, health, and libraries face as far as broadband is concerned, and they've become a major player in dealing with these issues with FCC. They've even been called to Congress to, highlight some of the issues that we were facing, including the Universal Service Fund. And Shelby's president, John Windhausen, has resigned. He'll still continue to be on the Shelby board, and they are looking for someone to fill his position. So if anyone's interested, Shelby has a wonderful website. You can go to shelby.org and you can look up what they do and how you, if you are in a position to serve, can serve the organization.
Thank you, Mala. And so Shelby has been an important organization up there lobbying on behalf of many of us who are interested in all these many issues. So we appreciate that. And Mala has been very actively engaged in Shelby. So any questions or comments for Mala before we move on? Okay, if not, let's move to Arizona and get an update. Aaron Lorandos and Kelly Crucy, you guys want to give us an update on what's the latest with the broadband office?
We sure do. Kelly, you want to go first?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. So okay. Kelly, introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Crucy. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at the State Broadband Office here in Arizona with the Arizona Commerce Authority. And today I am going to share some updates. And Steve, did you also want me to do a quick overview of the new website?
Yeah, just quickly though, please,
yes.
Kelly.
Yeah. Okay.
And I will share the link also.
Okay. And then if you can give me access to share my screen, I will do that. That's okay. Okay, so I'll plug a link in the chat, and then I'll let Erin try and assist if I mention any links. She's very good at plugging those in as well. Okay, so first updates, and I will share my screen. I can't talk and do two things at once. If I was chewing gum, we'd be in for a wild ride right now.
Walk to school or carry your lunch.
Yes. Okay, so this is our new website. I'll get into that and put the link in the chat. This came out, I think, maybe a month ago, and it's a new initiative from the governor's office. Very excited about this website, Connect All Arizona. And I just want to highlight a few things about this website because it is new, it is different. The old URL for the website still works. Everything redirects to this new website. And a few things for you to note here is this right here where it says State Broadband Office at the top in this navigation up here. This is always your home button. So if you are clicking other links and you want to get back to this page, which is the landing page, just click the State Broadband Office. That will always take you back. But right now we are in the application window. So we are very limited in the things that we can discuss because it is active procurement. But I do want to highlight a few things, and I can talk about, timelines, things that are all on the website for sure. So pre-registration remains open. That started on November 4th. It remains open even as we're in the application window. This pre-registration is a first mandatory step in order to submit an application for BEAD. So on this first landing page, you can get to pre-registration from here. You can also get to the subgrantee application as well. So we're going to go there. And are the things first I want to highlight about this website. So I'm going to scroll back to the top. This is under initiatives. So all the broadband initiatives are listed here. We've got BEAD. We also have digital equity. There's ABDG, middle mile, the rural broadband grant. So digital equity and broadband initiatives are all here. We are on the BEAD page right now. As you scroll down, there are these tabs here: timeline, action plan. This kind of walks you through the phases of the BEAD program. So if you're looking for any information, you can find it in these tabs, and everything that we've done in the past and the things that we're doing moving forward. So we're in the subgrantee application phase right now. This page has a lot of information. You can scroll down through it. First and foremost is the application. We've got the dates here, so you all know the dates. We're in the window, round 1. We will close February 5th. Round 2 will begin April 12th through May 2nd. You can click this button here to get started. And then you can also go back if you haven't pre-registered. So any BEAD applicant has to do this pre-registration. And then that gets approved, and then you can apply. We've got the application timeline. This is important information here, our application resources. So there's a lot of guidance resources here. We've been hosting application guidance webinars. We've recorded those, added the deck, added the recordings. And you can also see past webinars, past recordings here as well. You can sign up for future ones. So if you click on the webinars, now we have moved past our guidance webinars. And starting next week, we will have our technical assistance sessions. So again, this is all technical. It's nothing regarding anyone's specific application because we are in the window. This is all about the technical pieces. So questions about, hey, when I click on this in the portal, it doesn't work. Or this file, when I download it, is this how it's supposed to look? So we're answering questions specific to that portal in these technical assistance sessions. We have 4 of those. We might add more. We're going to see how they go, if they're well attended. And collect some feedback on those. But again, back on this application, everything you need to know is here. It's a lot of information. So again, jump into those technical assistance sessions if you've got questions. We've got the final project areas that are here. Our data sets for the approved challenge process. Market sounding information. So again, we're trying to store all the information here so that if there's something you need, it is available on the website. And I would say at this point in time, those are the main things I want to show you about the website. Again, you can find everything here. There is a great broadband map that has come out, and I think it's technically called the Arizona State Broadband Map. But you can zoom in here, and I think I did do a quick little video on this and how it works. But you can type in your own address. You can zoom in and find specific things and just kind of see like served, underserved, unserved, some great information on this map. And I think that's it that I want to highlight for the website and my updates.
Okay.
Thank you, Erin, for your assist in the chat.
No problem. I didn't actually do much. I just wanted to make it clear that the only thing that's open so far for application is the BEAD side of things. Because Steve's going to ask me, my name is Erin Lorandos, and I'm the Digital Equity Program Manager. I always got to get that in there. I appreciate it.
Excuse me, Erin. Kelly, could you stop sharing, please?
No, don't. Kelly's going to show my stuff too.
Sorry. No. Oops.
She may as well keep it up. Similar to what Kelly just went over on the BEAD page is the digital equity page. And you can access that by clicking on initiatives up at the top and then clicking into the digital equity program. And my website isn't quite as robust quite yet because, as I just mentioned, the subgrant process for the digital equity program is still forthcoming. We did get our approval for our capacity grant application. This is the funding that that NTIA has allocated to each state to implement the digital equity plan. We got that approval on December 19th, and our period of performance started the 1st of this month. So that kind of kicks off the digital equity timeline that you can see on the screen right now. If we scroll down just a smidge, you'll see the anticipated next steps and how that'll be laid out. As we set specific dates, of course, this information will be updated. But I just want to share that you know, there is a timeline. However, it is long enough that don't worry if this is the first time that you're seeing this stuff. We're going to be picking back up with our community roundtables later this month. The exact dates will be shared soon, and that will kick off what you see here as that subgrantee prep period, which we will have a 2-month runway to the window for application actually opening. We heard from many of our stakeholders that you know, that's very important to get that that runway so that they can get approval to apply. And so we really wanted to acknowledge that. Then after that 2 months, we will open the application window itself. We will share what will be required for that application during that runway. And we will host webinars to kind of talk about that process and everything, similar to what the BEAD side of things is doing. Then again, just like with BEAD, once the window actually opens, we'll only be able to answer technical questions, and we'll move through that process. We do have 9 months from the 1st of January to get back to NTIA with all of the specifics on the subgrantee recommendations and how we're going to be spending the remaining dollars. We received just over $16 million here in Arizona for this part of the puzzle. And because we were running a subgrant process, a lot of those dollars weren't directly tied to a project in our application. So we have that 9-month window to finalize all of that and get back to NTIA. At that point, when we submit it back to them, there will be another just final approval process before the funds will start flowing. So just to make that really clear, you know, we are probably looking at the end of this year before we actually have most of these dollars here in Arizona, that is. And so keep your eye on this page that you can see right now, as well as your inboxes. Everyone who has expressed interest in staying connected with the DE program is on our list and will be alerted when we do set those community roundtables for later this month and what those next steps will look like. If you're not on that list, if you scroll up to the top, Kelly, there is a link here to add yourself to our list. I think it's all the way at the top. Stay up to speed or keep up to date or something like that. Where is it, Kelly? It's up at the top, I thought, or at least it is on all the other pages. There it is.
Oh.
Stay up to speed. If you click on that, you can submit your contact information to us and get added to the listservs for both programs. Let's see. Otherwise, other really big digital equity related news that I do want to share, not coming from our office directly, but at the federal level, there have been some of the recommendations for the competitive grant released. They have recommended, I believe it's 24 applications from across the country, and 2 of those actually have projects within Arizona. And so the two projects that are going to affect work here in Arizona, one is the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. They are expanding the Digital Navigator program in conjunction with Gila River Indian Community and the Digital Connect Initiative through Gila River Telecom. And so that is fantastic news. The other application that includes work in Arizona was from Goodwill Industries, and so expanding their workforce development and digital equity programming here. I'm still getting reconnected with both of those programs, so I don't have additional details. However, the NTIA press release, which I can share here momentarily in the chat, does give the details of all 24 programs that have thus far been recommended for approval. I say recommended because this is similar to all of the other projects that we talk about. Basically, at this point, the applications are have hit the NTIA requirements, and they still need to be approved by NIST. So they wanted to announce, though, that those 24 had been recommended before, change over on the 20th and all of that, I'm sure, just to show the work that's happening. Another note on that is we do anticipate there to be more recommended projects coming across. Oh, thank you, Kelly. The total amount for what you can see here so far is only about 250 million, and there was over 800 million allocated for this first round of competitive grants. So we do anticipate seeing more applications. Of course, because it was competitive, we have no idea if there will be any more from Arizona or not, but there were quite a number of very strong applications from Arizona, we know. So fingers crossed on that piece. Anything else I'm missing? I don't think at this point, but happy to answer any questions that folks will have.
So Aaron, this is for you and Kelly, and you guys complete the 5th if you so choose. And maybe this is a question for Sandeep or the governor's office about what kind of advocacy is happening from Arizona regarding some of the issues that we just talked about with Jonathan and all the other USF and all these other issues that are going on. Again, you guys complete the 5th if you like, but
it's not really
it is kind of important to know that, because we're going to also be contacting the senator's offices and so forth. So
yeah, it's not really our part of the game. So I'm not sure if it's the 5th or just, pleading ignorance. But the state broadband office, we're not on any hills. we're not in that part of the game directly. So thank you for that. We're very interested as well, and obviously supportive of everything that can be done, but it's not something that we can directly do.
Any other questions for Kelly or Aaron? I take it.
I was going to ask Kelly, how many BEAD project areas are there?
67.
Okay.
And we are also
Were those
oh,
were those areas significantly impacted by the market sounding period that you had?
there were some adjustments. I because I don't know, I can't speak to what the adjustments were, but there were some changes that were made before market sounding and after.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, so a couple of things which I make this announcement every meeting. As you know, I do send out the chat after the meeting, but if you want, since there's a lot of good information in the chat, that you can download the chat after the meeting. If you go to chat, and at the very top, you'll see 3 ellipses. And if you click on that, you can download the chat to your computer, because there's a lot of good stuff here with lots of links and all that kind of stuff. So just a reminder about that. And then secondly is that I also, as most of you know, that I do send out after the meeting, I send out the recording, the chat, and all that sort of stuff, as well as pretty much anything that's talked about in the meeting. If there's links, I will include those in my newsletter. So just wanted to, because it's hard to keep up with everything and all the links, stuff that people talk about. So I just wanted to mention that. So getting back on the agenda real quick, we're going to run out of time fairly quickly. But a couple of quick things. Tracy Morris, I don't think you're online, are you? Um, Amelia, do you want to introduce yourself quickly and talk about the workforce partnership that you've got going on?
Absolutely, Steve. Thank you so much. Hi, all. Amelia De Jesus, Vice President of Workforce Solutions here at the Wireless Infrastructure Association. Just a little background. As an association, we have been very focused on public advocacy, public affairs, and workforce development in our goal to make sure that we're supporting widespread deployment of broadband infrastructure for all citizens to have broadband access. So as part of our workforce solutions, we absolutely think about training and education. And within WIA, we have a telecommunications education center. And that center really thinks about all of the aspects of our industry, whether it's wireless, wireline, fiber, DAS, Wi-Fi, you name it. So we think about the mix of technology when we think about educating students, people that need to be reskilled, upskilled. Today we have, we started off with about 35 courses across the industry, everything from fundamental courses to more technical. And recently I shared with Steve, and we'll also share this to this group and perhaps in the newsletter that he sends out. But we joined forces, as we have been in the past, with the Fiber Broadband Association. So now, in partnership with FBA, we are providing the 144 course fiber optic training. Within that course, I just want to give you guys a little synopsis. So they cover fiber theory. They cover everything around fiber cables, connections, the splicing, the installation, the testing, maintenance. And we also tag in fiber for wireless applications as well. So we're really excited about this partnership. Again, we've partnered with FBA for a long time, and it's exciting that both associations can really make sure that we're complementing the offerings, because ideally we want to make sure that we're offering good jobs to individuals, but also long-lasting careers within our industry. So short and sweet, Steve, and I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. And yes, I will put that information and the information you sent me in the newsletter. So that will be there. Any questions for Amelia? Going once, going twice. Okay, so while we're just as a follow-up to Amelia, that I am going to be doing, and I've mentioned this before, but I've started to work on this now, to do a series, probably a series on workforce development. I've been contacted by a number of different organizations who are engaged in workforce development, particularly as it relates to digital inclusion and so forth. And so I'm hoping to do a series about that. I do have a call into Carlos Contreras, who is the director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, and among other things, that apparently they are doing a lot of technology related training. And so I'm hoping that he will come and talk about who they are, what they do, and how they relate to some of the work that we're doing. And I'm sure, Aaron, that you guys have been in touch with them also. So anyway, that's going to be on the horizon, hopefully in the near future. Any other announcements? I know there's a bunch of stuff's been put in the chat. Any other announcements that people would like to share today? Going
Steve?
once? Yes.
It's Kelly Mukherjee from ASU's Enterprise Technology. We are looking to increase our following on LinkedIn. And so I'll put on our link in the chat. If you aren't already following us, we would love for you to follow us on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
And just a reminder that May 20 through 22, that NDIA, the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, will be holding their Net Inclusion Conference here in Arizona at the Gila River Indian Community. And it's a very prestigious conference. Encourage you all to plan to attend. And then also they are looking for sponsors. So I do have a link in my newsletter. If you're interested in being a sponsor, I encourage you to do that. We would certainly like to see organizations engage with Arizona to be sponsors and, of course, to participate. Any other announcements? Anything that people put in the
Sure,
chat
Steve,
that
Mark
they-
Goldstein.
Yeah, go
So
ahead, Mark.
I put two things about upcoming smart city related events. Lev Gonick and his ASU Enterprise Technology team are having, I think it's their 8th or ninth annual Smart Region Summit on March 4th. It is free to attend in downtown Phoenix, but that's a physical only event, no virtual components to that. And the Connective, which is the Phoenix Area Smart City Consortium that many of you may be familiar with from the past, and Dominic Pappas's leadership early on from that, has a couple of workshops, but they also have their connected Smart City event a bit later in March. Again, that's free and no virtual component will require physical attendance. So I'm sure you'll roll those into the newsletter, but thought I'd give just a little color while they're fresh.
Good, thanks, Mark. Anybody else?
Steve, I was also remiss in sharing on the 16th of January, if anyone's in the DC area, plan to be there, would like to attend this event, WIA is hosting an event in DC on preparing the broadband workforce for a connected future. And it's going to be a fireside chat conversation with industry and policy leaders featuring FCC Commissioner Brandon Carr and Jeffrey Starks. So again, that will be in DC on January 16th between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.
Amelia, there will not be any virtual
No,
participation.
unfortunately, this one's in person.
Okay. Any other announcements? So a couple of quick things. First of all, we've been doing this series on what's happening in Washington. Is this helpful, beneficial, interesting? Do you want to see more of that? I mean, obviously, the next few weeks in particular are going to be pretty interesting, but I'd like your thoughts about that. Okay, no comments. So secondly are there any issues or topics that you would like for us to be addressing in the near future?
Steve, I mentioned before, and I know you're going to return to the community-owned or driven broadband as a panel or topic that got postponed a bit last year. But I also think it might be useful to have some ag tech panel, and have several suggestions for people that might be potential participants in agricultural technology. A lot happening in Yuma and just otherwise in that arena.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Anybody else? Well, I guess not. So I believe that we are done for today. I think you all know that I'm going to stop recording, and I think you all know that we do our chat afterwards if anybody wants to